Yep.
Okay, everyone, welcome to Kodel Kol Shira in partnership with Breslov.org and, of course, Yeshiva Terra Shimon. And, I hope everyone had a really lit and delightful Hanukkah. And now we are getting ready with this Shabbos. Is very exciting. It's Parshat Vayigash. Parshat Vayigash is one of the most emotional parshas in all of the Torah. The emotions are so strong. It's very pivotal. It's very amazing. Let's review. Let's talk about some of the parsha in general, and then we'll focus in on a few things. So what happened? Let's review from last week. So last week we know that Yehuda had convinced Yaakov to bring Binyamin down to Mitzrayim, and he took personal responsibility for Binyamin. He said if he doesn't bring back Binyamin, he's willing to give up his Olam Haba, which was a pretty big, a pretty big stake to give, right? But he did that. Okay, so now they all travel down to Mitzrayim, and Yosef meets Binyamin, and he frames Binyamin, right? What does he do? He tells his employees, when you pack the bag of Binyamin, put my cup in that bag, on the bottom of the bag. In other words, put the cup in there, and then put all of the grain on top of the cup, and leave it like that. Okay, so of course they told him to do it. They listen to he was the viceroy of the land. They don't ask any questions. Okay, and then Yosef sent them all off. He sent them all off, and he sent his men to chase after them. And they met, and he says, they tell him, okay, we suspect that the cup of our boss is missing. And we suspect that you took it. Okay. So they said, listen, we didn't exactly, we're not thieves. They told him, we even gave you back your money. We brought you back your money doubled. Why would we take a cup? No. So they checked through everyone's bag, all their bags, all the 11 brothers' bags, and they come to Binyamin, and lo and behold, they find the cup. They go, aha! We found the cup. All right, off you go now, all back down to Egypt. All right, they were all arrested, and they have to go back down to Egypt. Okay, they come back down to Egypt, and now they're standing in front of Yosef. And Yehuda, of course, is going to be the spokesman, because, again, Yehuda is the one that made the guarantee to his father that he's going to bring Binyamin back. Right? And, they were kind of blaming themselves that this must be because we sold Yosef, and then we're getting paid back for that. And, Yehuda comes to Yosef, and he says something very strange. He says, I want to speak to you, be'oznecha, to your ears. I want to speak to you closely. See, till now, Yehuda, they had a meturgaman, they had a translator, right? Yosef was speaking Egyptian, they were speaking Lashon HaKodesh, and how was the Egyptian viceroy supposed to know Lashon HaKodesh. So they had an interpreter. Now, very, very, very interesting. So now he says, I want to speak to you one-on-one, man to man. But the question is, how will he understand Yehuda if Yehuda doesn't speak Egyptian and he speaks Lashon HaKodesh Hebrew? And here's a very fundamental thing that we learn. That when you speak words from the heart, the emotions, and you have the emotional feeling in the words, whether you understand them or not, you'll understand it. You'll understand the emotions. It's an amazing thing. And something else is very important. Yehuda says, I want to speak to you in your ear, which means he's going to speak very softly. Very softly. Did you ever notice that when somebody has something truthful to say, they won't raise their voice? They'll say it calmly. They have no reason to raise their voice. But wait a minute. If what they have to say is controversial, or maybe it's not exactly correct, so they may raise their voice in order to feel a little more, to make themselves feel a little more dominant, so that the person will listen to what they're saying, even though they may not agree to it. Right? So here you see that Yehuda was really coming to speak to him, and he was speaking to words of his heart. And Yehuda said like this, look, in our law, in Jewish law, if somebody steals something and he doesn't have the money to pay it back, so then they'll sell him as a slave. And the money that he gets for that being sold for the 7 years, or the balance of the 7 years of the Eved Ivri, whatever the case is, will go towards what he had stolen. So Yosef said, Yehuda said to him, so listen, we're willing to pay you for the cup. We're happy to pay you for the cup. We're not asking you just to send him away. We'll give you the money for the cup. Not only that, we'll even pay the kefil. We'll pay double. So if the cup was worth $1,000, we'll give you $2,000. But let him go. And he says to him, the final thing he says to him, but if you won't let him go, so he says, take me as a slave. Take me as a slave. Let him go home. Take me as a slave. When Yosef heard that, he couldn't hold himself back anymore. When he heard that Yehuda truly did tshuva, because it was Yehuda's idea originally to sell him to the Yishmaelim that sent him down to Mitzrayim. Now, if Yehuda is willing to make himself into a slave in order to redeem Binyamin, Yosef says, they truly did tshuva. They truly did tshuva. It's amazing. The story is amazing. And Yehuda is telling Yosef, our father won't be able to handle it. He won't be able to handle the fact that Binyamin's not there. He won't be able to handle it. But I'll ask you a question. Why didn't he say, Binyamin is married, and Binyamin has 10 children. Why didn't he mention that? Binyamin's married. He has a wife. He has children. 10. But he only focuses on the father. And he focused on the father would die because of grief. Right? If he didn't see his son. Because he was the only one that was left for him from Rachel Imenu, his beloved wife. So what does Yosef do? He's overcome by Yehuda's loyalty. He's really overcome by the loyalty Yehuda shows him. And Yosef can no longer restrain himself. So what does he do? He orders all of the Egyptians, the attendants, everybody, leave. Leave. Just me and them. I want here. So of course they listen to him. And he cries out, Yosef, in Hebrew. Ani Yosef, Haod Avichai. I'm Joseph. Is our father alive? The brothers were in shock. Could you imagine the shock they were? Could you imagine the shock when he reveals himself? They think he's this ruler called Safnas Paneach. He's some villain, some Egyptian villain. I ask you another question. Let me ask you a question. And Mordechai, you could tell me an answer if you want to tell me an answer. Why didn't the brothers recognize him? Okay, yes, he was a little older. Yes, he was wearing his costume. Okay. But still, he's their brother. Why didn't they recognize him? He recognized them. Why didn't they recognize him? So the Zohar HaKadosh says an amazing thing. You're not allowed to look in the face of a Rasha. You're not allowed to look at a Rasha. Riyas Pnei Rasha is also. You're not allowed to look at the face of a Rasha. And therefore, the brothers never looked at Yosef. They never even looked at him. They looked away from him. They didn't look at him. It's amazing. So can you imagine how shocked they were? They didn't even look at him. Now, he says in Hebrew, Ani Yosef. Wow. Could you imagine that shock? Unreal. But they were stunned and they were terrified at the same time. They couldn't even speak. They were speechless. They were speechless. And Yosef then comforts them. He comforts them. And he reassures them. He tells them, don't be distressed. Don't be upset. You shouldn't be upset with yourselves that you sold me. He explains to them it was actually God's plan. It was Hashem's plan to send me to Egypt. Why? To provide you with food. We're learning that really all the bracha in the world comes from the tzaddik. The tzaddikim are responsible for the bracha. Right? Yosef, it was because he was the tzaddik, he was there to give them food. So why are you upset? The reunion, Yosef embraces and kisses Binyamin, his little brother. And then all of his brothers weeping with joy. Is that so beautiful? I can't even imagine the emotions that were in that room at that time. There's no real words to describe it. They orchestrated this whole story that he was killed, and they told it to their father, and they put their father through such agony for 22 years. Amazing. All right, so after that, Paro, right? Yosef, he was second in command, but Paro was still the king. So Paro, after this wonderful reunion, Paro's so pleased, he invites Yosef's family to move to Egypt, promising them the fat of the land. Amazing. Provisions. Yosef provides for his brothers wagons, changes of clothing, and silver, and he sends special delicacies and supplies to his father. There's an understanding. Why did Yosef have to give them clothes? I'll tell you why. Because when they found out that Binyamin was going to have to stay there, and he was arrested, they all tore their garments. So Yosef said, wow, I caused you to tear your garments. So Yosef was responsible to give them new garments. But he gave more garments to Binyamin. And we learned why. Because Binyamin was the Kohen, and the land, the Beis HaMikdash was built in the territory of Binyamin. And the Kohanim would have many vestments. So therefore Yosef gave Binyamin more vestments. But then you may think, but wait a second, he's showing favoritism. Isn't that the whole reason why they got into this problem originally? Interesting. The brothers return to Canaan and tell Yaakov, Yosef is still alive and he is the ruler over the land of Egypt. Yaakov's revival. He was revived. At first, Yaakov does not believe them. He doesn't believe them that what they're saying is true. It's not for nothing that he doesn't believe them. Why? Because they originally told him that Yosef wasn't alive. Now, if Yosef wasn't alive, now they come back and they say he is alive, why should they believe him? Hello, sir. Hello. Yeah. The bag is over here. Okay. And Yaakov says he saw the Egyptian wagons. Yaakov saw the wagons that Yosef sent up to him. Actually, Paro sent them up to him. And his spirit was revived. It's amazing. He saw the agolas. He saw the wagons. I will go to see him before I die, Yaakov said. So Yaakov now packs up and they head down to Beersheba. And on their way, Yaakov makes sacrifices. He brings karbonot. He brings sacrifices to Hashem. And Hashem tells him, don't fear to go down to Mitzrayim. I will go down with you. But not only will I go down with you, I will surely bring you up again. Hashem says, I'll be with you there. Don't worry. I will be with you there. And the Torah recounts that there were 70 souls. That there were 70 souls that went down to Egypt. As we read on at the Pesach Seder. At the Pesach Seder we read that there were 70 souls that Yaakov went down to Mitzrayim with. And that included also Yosef's 2 sons, Ephraim and Menashe, Menashe and Ephraim, who were already there. Now, there's so many other interesting things. Let's continue. Let's continue. Any questions so far? Any questions? No? No questions. Okay. Okay, very important thing, the next thing that happens. Yaakov sends Yehuda to Goshen to prepare the way. Yosef hitches his chariot and goes to meet his father. You hear that? Yosef, the viceroy of Mitzrayim, hitched his own chariot to honor his father. They embrace and they weep for a long time. Yaakov says, now I can die after I saw your face. Life is complete. Life is complete. And then what happens is, Yosef introduces 5 of his brothers and then his father to Paro. We'll talk in a minute why he introduced only 5. Yaakov blesses Paro. Paro asked him a strange question. What's your age? Not very polite, right? Hey, how old are you? Yaakov famously describes his 130 years as few and evil, referring to the many hardship he has faced. I mean, let's think about Yaakov's life for a minute. Let's review Yaakov's life for a few minutes. Okay, here we go. Yaakov is born. At the time he's born, Esav is trying to bash in his head. That's why he's holding on to his heel. He's born. Esav had destroyed the womb of Rivka, so she shouldn't have any other children. He also made it that Rivka won't be able to nurse. And therefore, Rivka had a wet nurse. She had a wet nurse. None of the other Emos had a wet nurse. But she had a wet nurse because she couldn't nurse, thanks to Esau. Okay, Yaakov is growing up. His father doesn't pay much attention to him. His father loves Esau, but he doesn't pay much attention to him. And then we know what happens. Rivka tells Yaakov, now go in and take the brachas from your father before he dies. So Yaakov dresses up in Esav's clothing. We know the story. And he goes into Yitzchak. And he says, Ani Esav. And that was the most difficult thing for Yaakov to do because Yaakov is MS. And he had to say, I'm Esav. Could you imagine how difficult that was for him? He takes the brachas successfully. He leaves successfully. What happens? Yosef says, I want to kill him. So what does Rivka do? Rivka says to him, you know what? Leave. Leave. Get away from here. Because your brother wants to kill you. Yitzchak tells Yaakov, go down to Haran, go down to that place in Mesopotamia, far away where Lavan lives, and marry one of his daughters. Don't marry the daughters of Canaan. They're bad. So Yaakov is traveling. We know the famous story in Eliphaz. Esav's son comes and nearly kills Yaakov. And Yaakov makes a deal with him and says to him, you take all of my clothing and you take all of my money in Anias Chashav Kemes. It's like a dead person. He took everything. He took everything. He only left Yaakov with his stick. Yaakov wind up founding the clothing. The Medrash says we learned that from a man that was swimming and the man drowned. Yaakov took the clothing and Yaakov was afraid that they saw that he stole the clothes and they were looking for Yaakov Avinu. And therefore he went to hide in Yeshiva Shem for 12 years. He was hiding out from the cops. They wanted to arrest him. When the coast was clear, he went off. And then he had the famous dream. He came to the Harabayas. And he had that famous dream with the ladder. And the angels were going up and down. Amazing, right? Then he comes to Lavan. Lavan tells him, okay, you want to marry Rachel? Fine, work for me for 7 years. 7 years is up. It's time for the wedding. What does Lavan do? Switches Leah for Rachel. Rachel's great commitment to not embarrass her sister gave over the codes, everything else. But again, that was difficult for Yaakov. Very difficult. Then Yaakov stays there and he works there. And he winds up staying there for another 6 years. He winds up 11 of the Shvatim are born. And then Yaakov is ready to leave. Right? Yaakov was ready to leave. And Rashi told us that Yosef was the lahava, was the fire, was the torch that can burn down Esav. Esav is like straw. Yosef is the torch. If you have a whole lot of straw, but you have a torch and you torch the straw, how long is the straw going to last? It'll burn right up. Esav was also happy when Yosef was missing all those years. He figured now Yaakov doesn't have his torch. Then Yaakov winds up meeting Lavan. He chases after him. And then Rachel passes away. And then he moves his bed to the tent of Bilhah. And Reuven comes along and moves his bed out. Well, we learned that night when that happened, Yaakov was supposed to be with Bilhah, and he was supposed to have 2 more Shvatim, twins. Reuven understood that. That's why Reuven was so nervous when he came back to the pit and Yosef was missing, remember? Because he said, now, how are those 2 Shvatim going to be born? They were going to be born through Yosef. But if he's not here no more, how are they going to be born? And Yaakov is reminding himself of all of these things. And he tells Parai, my years were few and evil. Could you believe that? He had so many hardships. Paroi.
And evil?
What's that? Evil. Yeah.
Yaakov said this?
Yaakov said that. It's in the Torah. It says that in the Torah. Yes, sir. Yaakov answered
why did he say he was evil?
I just told you why they were evil. All those years of what he had to deal with in his life. Yaakov got punished for that. He should not have said that. And he lost many years of his life because of that.
Okay.
He was supposed to live, Yaakov was supposed to live to 180 like his father. 180. But he only lived to 147. He's now 130. And he lives in Mitzrayim for 17 years, as we'll read next week's Parsha. That means he lived for 147 years. He didn't live the 180. He lost 33 years. Because he said these words. And there's so many teachings on that. Okay, they come now. Paroi officially grants the family the fertile land of Goshen. The land of Goshen, where they can live as shepherds, separate from the Egyptian population. It's amazing. Now, Yosef did something amazing. What did Yosef do? Yosef did something so remarkable. The Egyptians, during the course of the 7 years of famine, they had given up all of their money to buy food. When their money ran out, they gave their animals, their flock, to Yosef to get food. When that ran out, they gave Yosef the deed to all of their homes in order to get food. And when that ran out, they wound up selling themselves as slaves. So all the Egyptians were actually slaves to Yosef. Yosef amassed a huge sum of money. But Yosef divided the money into 3 sections. And he hid money away. One section of money that he did, what he hid was the money of the money that he took from the idol worshippers. He didn't mix the money together. It wasn't just money. See, today we don't maybe understand that. Today money is money. I owe you money, I pay you. Doesn't matter where I got my money from, nor does anyone really care. Yosef paid it very close attention. Where did the money come from? Those were idol worshippers, that money went in one account. Those that were involved in thievery, stealing, and stole money, that money went into another account. And then the righteous Egyptians, those that were God-fearing, those that were not involved in avodah zarah, not involved in thievery, he put their money separately. And that money's hidden away for the tzaddikim when Mashiach comes. Could you imagine that amount of money? I can't even imagine. Egypt was the big world power at the time. And Yosef had amassed all the money of the whole country. Is that amazing? Except from, well, we'll talk about it right now. Because there was as there was an economic collapse in Mitzrayim because of the famine. The Egyptians ran out of money, like we said. Eventually, all the land, except for the land of the priests. This is very, very interesting what we're going to talk about right now. The land of the priests belonged to Paroi. And Yosef institutes a 20% tax on all further crops. And that's when we learn now the thing in halacha that you give a chomesh. We learned that the other day in the morning. We were learning that in Lakutei Halachos, that we give a chomesh, a fifth. A fifth is 20%. And that's what we should give for our tzedakah. You shouldn't give more than a chomesh. And while the Egyptians were struggling, Yaakov and his children and their families settled in Goshen. They acquired property, and they were fruitful, and they multiplied exceedingly. So here's an interesting idea. We spoke about the idea that Yosef introduced the Paroi 5 of the brothers. He didn't introduce all the brothers. He introduced 5 of the brothers. Why did he introduce 5 of the brothers? Those were the 5 of the weaker brothers. Who did he introduce? Zvulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. See, if he had brought in Yehuda, Shimon, Levi, mama, strong people, what would have happened? Paro might have seen them as a threat or as a prime candidate for his army. Make him part of the Egyptian army. Make them soldiers. Make them officers. So Yosef introduces the weak ones. And they said, we're just shepherds. And because we're just shepherds, Paro wasn't interested. But here's something interesting. The breakdown of the 70 souls. It's the foundational census in Jewish history. That's the foundational census of all of Jewish history. It's divided up between the children of Yaakov from his 4 wives. And it says that Yocheved, who is Yocheved? The mother of Moshe. Yocheved was the mother of Moshe. She was born as they entered the gates of Egypt. As they entered the gates of Egypt, Yocheved was born. Is that so nice? Is that so beautiful? Moshe's mother is born, and she makes the 70th one. Some say the 70th one is Yaakov. Some say the 70th one was the Shekhinah. And then there was something very interesting that happened. The agalot, the wagons, those famous wagons. Yaakov only believes that Yosef's alive when he sees the wagons, the agalot. When he sees these agalot, he believes Yosef's alive. Why? The Medrash explains, listen to this is so beautiful, that when Yosef last was with his father 22 years ago, they were learning the laws of Eglah Rufa. What's Eglah Rufa? Whenever there's somebody that passes away in between 2 cities, right? Someone passes away in between 2 cities. So they would go out and measure. They would go out and measure who he was closer to. Which city was he closer to? Was he closer to the city that he was leaving? Or was he closer to the city that he was going to? And wherever he was closer to had to bring a special sacrifice called the Eglah Rufa. And that's what they were studying. Eglah Agala. Agalot. Egla arufa. You hear this, Mordechai? Egla. Agalot. Same word. Oh, Yaakov said, wait a second. It must be true that Yosef is alive. Or else why would he have sent the wagons? Oh, only he would know that I was studying with him the Parshat of the Egla Rufa. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu was consoled. But we learned something so special, and I want to close with this. Something so special. The Medrash says that Yaakov Avinu was destined to go down to Mitzrayim. He was destined to go down to Mitzrayim. He was supposed to go down to Mitzrayim as a prisoner, chained. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Yaakov, Ahuvi. Yaakov, my beloved one, my beloved child, my beloved Yaakov. I cannot have you go down to Mitzrayim in chains. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated this entire story from the very, very beginning, that all these strange things would happen. That Yosef would be telling Lashon Hara, and Yaakov would listen to the Lashon Hara. As we're learning in the morning, we're learning the laws of Lashon Hara now. And how Yosef had to be in jail for 10 years because of the Lashon Hara they spoke, because he spoke about 10 of his brothers. And Yaakov Avinu made the Kisainis Pasim, that technicolored coat, that fancy coat for Yosef, and he showed favoritism. Yaakov Avinu knew the Torah. The Torah says don't show favoritism, but he did it. The brothers do something strange. They sell their brother down to Mitzrayim. The brothers also didn't accept Asnas. They didn't accept that little girl. Who was Asnas? She was the daughter of Dinah. Who was the father of Asnas? Shem. She was raped, remember? And this little girl went down to Mitzrayim. And she was adopted by the Potiphar family. Remember? And she was the one that told Mr. Potiphar that Yosef was not attacking Mrs. Potiphar, but in fact she was attacking him. There are others that say that the priests of Mitzrayim, when Potiphar saw what happened, he took the garment from Yosef and he brought it to the priests and he had them investigate it. And they came to a conclusion. What was the conclusion they came to? They looked where the coat was torn. Was the coat torn in the front? No, the coat was torn in the back. If his garment was torn in the back, that means she was ripping his garment. He was kind of trying to get away and she was pulling on his garment. And that's how she got the garment. And therefore the priests were the ones that redeemed Yosef from that thing. It doesn't matter. It could have been that Asna said what she told him. And then he said, okay, if that's the case, let me go bring it to prove it. And he brought the coat. And that's one of the reasons why he did not wind up charging them the 20% tax or taking their property from the priests, because he had a kares atov to them. And there's another beautiful school of thought. And I think, Mordechai, you asked me this question. Why was it that the Levium in Mitzrayim were not in servitude? Why were all the other Jews in servitude? But the Levium were spared from the servitude. Why? Because Yosef set the precedent. Levi, Kohanim, they're the priests. Yosef already set into the laws of Mitzrayim that the priests are not having to pay the tax, not financially and not with their lives. And therefore the Levium were saved. But again, all of these things transpired so Yaakov Avinu would see those agalot, those wagons. He would see those wagons, the royal wagons. Could you imagine the wagons? Could you imagine, like any country has their fancy limousines, right? So Paro sent the fancy royal wagons, whatever they looked, they must have been beautiful. Royal wagons, right? But he sent wagons. He could have sent a donkey. They used to travel on a donkey. Why do you have to send wagons? When Yaakov saw the wagons, he understood, Yosef is alive and I will go down to Mitzrayim. I want to see my son. And Yaakov Avinu goes down in the lap of luxury, in a royal wagon. And he doesn't go down as a prisoner. And when he comes to Mitzrayim, he meets with the king and he's granted beautiful land. There's a medrash that says that really Goshen was given to Sarah Imenu. You remember when Sarah went down, when Avram went down to Mitzrayim, Sarah was taken by Paro. And then when Paro realized what he did, that Sarah was married to Abraham, he sent Avram away with a lot of gifts, right? A lot of money and gifts. That was the precedent that the Jews would take a lot of money out of Mitzrayim. And he gave to Sarah Goshen. So she already owned it. So Paro just gave back to Yaakov what was already given to Sarah Imenu. It's amazing. Because that land of Goshen where they settled in Egypt, that land of Goshen, was actually land that was deeded to Sarah Imenu. It's amazing. When you study the story, the medrash behind everything, and you put all the pieces together, you see how the story is such an amazing, incredible story. It's really, truly amazing. So, I mean, this is the lesson that I have for the Parsha, okay? I gave you all the different ideas from the different midrashim. I gave you different ideas from Rabbi Nachman. I gave you beautiful ideas that came from Rashi as well. The holy Rashi, every word of Rashi is like a treasure. And I wish all my listeners, wherever you are in the world, that are going to watch the video, I wish you a wonderful Shabbos. And next week's a very special week because next week on Tuesday is Asara B'Teves. And Asara B'Teves is a very sad day on the Jewish calendar. But for us, Breslevers, it's Rab Noson's yard site. The beautiful Rab Noson. We study Rab Noson's Torah every morning, Baruch Hashem, and Kutei Halachas. Oh, it's so special, so beautiful. And amidst Hashem, it'll be Rab Noson's yard site on Tuesday. This week coming up on Tuesday. So I wish you a wonderful Shabbos and really take the time to be Mavis Sedra. Take the time to go over the psukim, like we learned. Every time you Mavis Sedra, realize that all of those words, every word you read is connected to different neshamas of all the different Jewish people. Each letter in the Torah is another source neshama. 600,000 letters in the Torah, 600,000 source neshamas. And every Jew is connected to one of those neshamot. And when you learn Torah, you can waken up their souls. So all of our brothers and sisters that are so lost, when we are Ma'aveh Sedra, and we learn the Parsha, and we read the Parsha in that way to understand that I want to wake up their souls, we can do that. So everyone, thank you very much. Kol Tuv.